that again caused me great angst,
Right.
because we're really, stuck with the records, and the records become everything to us. And
Sure.
and it's no reflection on what you want to do, but we got to try to find a way to update the records process in the state of Connecticut so that we can assist everybody.
Right. Yeah.
And we apologize for causing you problems.
Well, no, you don't need to.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and certainly some people don't change their birth certificate. I have not changed mine, although I am not sure what I'm going to do with that. I haven't made up my mind, but some people do, some people don't, and it is an interesting thing, the notion of changing the birth record. But
yeah, I just have a problem with going back and amending history. In other words,
right, exactly.
Right. It's just like going back and saying, "Oh well, we didn't win World War I." Things. You can't change history and that's what you're doing. And you can change, but you can't change the event. Now, the worst thing you can do, and really the worst thing you can do, is falsify the record or try to change or hide it or not be truthful, because. Really, we really don't care. I mean, you come in and you're getting a marriage license. I happen to be a justice of the peace, and I'd be happy to perform same-sex marriages. I'm really curious of what the marriage license is going to look like,
right?
Because maybe they'll have to make one where the partners are side by side instead of one over the other, because it's always been traditional that it's the male and then female, and
I think in California what they did is they kept the same order and they just changed the wording from husband and wife to party 1 and party 2.
Party 1, party 2, yeah.
But gee, flip a coin.
It's not as elegant.
You want to be party 2? I mean, come on, you want to be party 1. You're going to have a big fight about that.
Right. That's interesting.
Well, good luck, folks, anyway.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
We certainly do recognize the logistic issues that can arise, and we appreciate his patience, your patience, and everyone else that has to deal with the records and helping us adjust the records so that we can fix what the doctors guessed wrong at.
Right.
And I agree with that. I hadn't really, fully thought that part out, but it's the same thing you get in a large corporation with legal databases, where you have to track records, and you can make changes, but you have to be able to track those changes, what was changed, why it was changed.
Well, and I think in Connecticut, I thought it was an amendment to the birth certificate that made the change. Right. But then a later ruling said that you can get, I'm going to get the wording wrong here, but a silent amendment or something, so they don't put an asterisk next to it anymore to say there was a change.
Right. And I would certainly be able to track some of my records. I have 3 degrees. I wouldn't want to lose those because I've changed my
name.
Gender, or changed my gender marker.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's not something that I've given a lot of thought to, but I have thought about it. It's like I am in the position now where I could change my birth record, and I have not done that. But there's a part of me that wants to, but I've sort of resisted it. So I'm not sure that I'm going to do that. But it's a good point. And
I think the more the public learns about our situation and comes to understand what transgender people means, transsexuals mean, the public has gotten more and more accepting, and it's become less and less important to hide those gender markers.
Right.
It used to be that if someone found out on your birth certificate that the doctor thought you were male, because that's what the plumbing looked like when you were born, and you're presenting today as female, that would be a source that would be used to get you fired from a job, or that you'd get physically harmed over.
Right.
And in that time, at that point, it becomes important to protect yourself by hiding that information. Not illegally, but through the legal processes, changing it so that a future employer isn't going to look it up and find it. Or with the new Employment Verification Act, when they can go check the Social Security database and find out, even though gender is not required to validate citizenship, I believe it is still one of the fields that gets bounced against your employment records. And your citizenship verification can come back like undefined or some in the middle status that's not affirmative and not negative.
Wow.
And some employers will take anything that's not an affirmative citizenship response as you're unemployable.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's very interesting. And there are certainly things like those that are intersexed and babies that are born with ambiguous genitalia,
Right.
where this could become kind of a more complicated issue. But I'm not sure that we want to.
becomes complicated for
And certainly that could become an issue for us. You were talking about the Harry Benjamin issue and the intersexed issue, and
Yeah.
which was very interesting, and that could come into play for us even. But
Right.
but it's a pretty big topic, I think.
Well, and for the benefit of the people that are watching at home that aren't familiar with the term intersex, it refers to a group of people that have one or another genetic conditions that cause them to have ambiguous genitalia. In some cases, they have testicles that haven't dropped. They're still contained within their body. And as a child, the doctors look at the baby and say, nothing's hanging down, it must be female, when in fact that's not the case.
Right. It's not as simple as people tend to think. We have a call. Good evening. This is nlcTrans. You're on the air.
Yes, hi. In reference to the last caller,
Okay.
I know that these are perhaps not direct, issues. But now, in my case, I am a retired state librarian who worked for many years in the State Library and Archives, History, and Genealogy.
Okay.
And I know that the amount of research that goes on, that traces, of course, far back as one might be able to go. Mm-hmm. Now, again, speaking on this tangential issue, what happens, because that you were discussing with the last caller about, if you were designated one gender at birth, and then later in life that gender changed, mm-hmm. What happens then for future generations who are studying genealogy? And I can assure you there is a huge and growing enthusiasm for this.
Right.
Absolutely.
And now, what's going to happen to your history?
It's going to be very confusing.
Well, it's going to be lost.
Well, there's certainly legal records when we change our names, and there's legal records when we change the gender. So those records, I would think, would be able to be found. Legal name change is a probate court order, so those would certainly be acceptable.
But it's not a name change only.
In that case, that's a name change only. And as far as tracing genealogy, I would expect that would let you trace who the children
Not
became.
necessarily. Not necessarily. So that's another issue. If you want to remain an identity in history,
Right.
that I think more should be considered in this whole issue. You're not talking now as a person. You're talking history. I mean, in the case
Mm-hmm.
of the last caller, he was talking about changing history, which also bothers me.
Right.
But also, too, in the future, people 100 years from now, 200 years from now, might want to know who you are.
Don't you run into the same issue with marriages and divorces, though, when people change their
No,
names?
those are really clear. Those are very clearly stated. And that and as a matter of fact, maybe to other people listening in, they might not realize it, but divorce was not unknown through history. Mm-hmm. And it's very traceable, and it happened over and over again, even though, in the last 40 years, people were suddenly aware of the fact that, people get divorced where they didn't before. That's not true. People have always divorced.
Sure.
Right.
But it's traceable because of the
that's
marriage
traceable.
licenses? Or there are other records.
And there are divorce records.
Right, and they're filed with the towns and the courts, right?
Well, yes.
So's the
Some
probate
in
order.
court, some in the city clerk's office.